Hey, I got a great email from somebody asking, does stomach acid production decline as we age? So in this video, I'm going to help you understand, is this true? Is it fiction? And what you can do about it depending on your situation. Let's jump in.
TC Hale is not a doctor and does not claim to be a doctor or licensed in any type of medical field. Don't be an idiot and use anything heard on the show as medical advice. This information should be used for educational purposes only, and you should contact your doctor for any medical advice. Now get off me.
So I got an email from Albert who asked, I read a lot of information claiming that HCl production declines with age. Like by 60 years old, your stomach acid is reduced by 30%. How true is this? I'm 69, and since reading your content, have been supplementing with HCl that I realized I really needed. I've been carnivore for 4 years and don't have a gallbladder. Had motility problems just the last 6 months, and HCl is helping. Also taking beet flow. Tried Tudka, and even at a quarter of a capsule got diarrhea. Thanks for the great information. So I don't know Albert. I don't know his specific situation, so I can't give him specific advice. But we can talk about this topic of, does HCl production in the stomach decline as we age? And I think that if you looked at everybody reported in, like everybody on the planet just reported in every year of how their stomach acid production symptoms were going, if they even knew what those were, I think that you would see that enough people as they aged would have that stomach acid decrease that it would be shown as a fact. Like, this is a fact from these studies of all the people on the planet having it decline, this percentage had to go down, so this is a fact. But I don't think that this is the way. I'm going to put a link in the description below to a study that actually looked at a group of people, and they looked at a variety of parameters and age and gender, and they found no indication showing that gastric acid production went down as we aged. So according to this study, production does not go down according to a calendar. Like, it's not about your age. So you don't have to view it like, well, I like to play shuffleboard and bingo now, so my stomach acid is going to go down. I don't think that's what it is. The way that I view it is, as we age, we have more opportunities for more things to go wrong that can restrict the body's ability to make stomach acid. Like, there's a lot of things that can happen that can reduce our ability to make that stomach acid. And then when that happens, we might take steps to make it even worse. Like, this reflux situation is a multi-billion-dollar industry. There are millions of people all over the world that just go to the drugstore, buy some type of PPI or antacid, and use it whenever they have a reflux symptom without any kind of doctor's help at all. And there's lots of people that are being prescribed these things from doctors for different reasons, and some of those reasons are very valid and can be very beneficial for. But what we need to understand is that a person can have a situation go on where maybe they have an infection or something, and something comes in that restricts the body's ability to make enough hydrochloric acid to truly acidify our food so that we can break it down and get the nutrients out of that food. But if something comes in that restricts that HCl production, now there's only a small amount of acid in the stomach, and then there's not enough to trigger that LES valve at the bottom of the esophagus to close correctly. And when that's not being triggered by stomach acid, it won't close, and then the small amount of acid in there is going to come back up and burn us. So what do? We go to the store and we get an antacid to help relieve that symptom. Or we buy some type of PPI, which is a proton pump inhibitor that restricts your body from making stomach acid to relieve that symptom. And we feel better, so we're like, okay, that was the right step to do. I'm going to keep doing that as long as I'm having these symptoms. So the person is really turning off their stomach acid when they do this. They're turning off the body's ability to acidify the food and break it down and get the nutrients out of that food. And the real problem with that is that this stomach acid is needed to help us get minerals out of the food that we're eating. And the body needs minerals to make hydrochloric acid. So we're turning off the body's ability to access the nutrients it needs so that it can break the food down correctly so that it can access the nutrients that it needs. So a person can get stuck in this cycle of broken digestion for a really long time. So they might even take these medications for a very short time, but once the body is not bringing in the minerals that it needs to make that hydrochloric acid, they may not be able to go back to where they can make it properly. And the body is going to be stuck in this broken digestion cycle for years or decades. And keep in mind that a person doesn't even need to use an antacid or a PPI to have their stomach acid stop being produced correctly. A person can just go low on resources or minerals, and now all of a sudden the body doesn't have what it needs to produce that HCl like it's supposed to. So that was an example of what I did. I had a food poisoning issue where I felt really bad and I had a bug in there. And then that bug got kind of overgrowth and went kind of crazy, and it started creating all this alkaline waste. It was reducing my ability to digest my food correctly. So that started creating symptoms like reflux and gas and made me go, I'm going to use some antacids here. Maybe I need a PPI. I started doing those things. But I hear from a lot of people who never took any of those things and they still have their stomach acid go down. And when you understand the things in your life that can happen, that can make this come about, you can see that it would be very common. It can be as simple as just an increased level of stress in your life for a given period of time. Stress has the ability to push us into this sympathetic fight or flight state. That's the state that the body goes into to help us function better in an emergency situation like running from a lion or something. But things in your life can really stress you out where to you, your body is experiencing that it's life or death and that we have to run away from this lion. So the body changes the way that it's operating. It doesn't know that you're stressed because the stress at work is stressful for like a month at a time. It just views the situation like you need to survive. So when we're stuck in this sympathetic fight or flight state for an extended period of time, it reduces our ability to create this hydrochloric acid, because to produce hydrochloric acid, the body needs to be in the parasympathetic rest and digest state. That's the way that the body moves so that it can digest correctly. It needs to put all the resources towards digestion, but if the body's in this state where it's viewing something as an emergency and all the resources are going towards that, then the body can't digest correctly. So if a person gets into that state for long enough, all of a sudden they can't make enough HCl to digest their food. Then they're not pulling all the minerals out of that food. And then the stress state may go away. Maybe the stress in their life is removed, but now they don't have enough minerals to create that hydrochloric acid. So now they have this lack of stomach acid for a totally different reason. Another example is that as we age, it's very common for someone to become more and more insulin resistant, especially if they're eating a lot of carbohydrates and processed junk food. That's just how most people eat today. And most of those individuals are eventually, as they age, going to become more and more insulin resistant because of the nonstop slamming of carbohydrates in the system that really should not be coming in at that rate. So the more insulin that the body has to make, the more inflammation that high insulin can create, which can create a lot of problems in the body and can stress the body out and can even push this body into a sympathetic fight or flight state, which we understand can reduce the ability to create that hydrochloric acid. We also see a lot of people with gallbladder issues going on, and the gallbladder stores our bile, and the bile is this alkaline soapy substance that comes down and it helps us neutralize the acidic foods that are leaving the stomach. And we have to neutralize those acids or the acids continue through the intestinal tract and create all kinds of trouble. So we need this alkaline bile to come down and neutralize those acids, and that alkaline substance meeting the acid substance creates this sizzle that really helps us bust the food apart and get all the nutrients out of that food. But there's a lot of things in our world that can thicken up the bile so it won't flow correctly, and then that can lead to gallbladder sludge or even gallstones, and then gallbladder attacks, and then what do? We yank the gallbladder out and we throw it in the trash. So now a person doesn't have the other half of that digestive process that helps us create that sizzle and really digest all of our fat-soluble vitamins and get all the minerals and nutrients out of the food that we're eating. So then resources can go low and restrict a person's ability to make that hydrochloric acid. You know, a person also needs to be getting enough water and CO2 in the system to be able to make hydrochloric acid. There's a lot of things that people do today that can restrict those things. A lot of people don't drink water at all. They're like, oh, I had some coffee. Doesn't that count? But we really need water for a lot of purposes. And a lot of people now are understanding that these carbohydrates can cause a lot of trouble, so they're removing all of them, like Albert was doing a carnivore diet. And I'm not saying a carnivore diet is bad. I use a carnivore diet myself for part of the year. I use it with a lot of clients, but I cycle it in and out because when you're removing all of your carbohydrates, CO2 is a byproduct of properly processing carbohydrates that makes more CO2 in the system. So when somebody removes all the carbs, because maybe they really need to, maybe there's health issues that are saying this is going to benefit them, but over time the CO2 really goes down and then they can't produce hydrochloric acid for that reason. They were even doing something that was benefiting their body, but it can result in bad things if they do it for too long or the wrong person does it for too long. This is not going to happen with everybody, but for a lot of people, the CO2 can go too low and create this problem. So you can see the reason is not going to be the same for every person, but you can see that over time, there's a wide variety of issues that can come about, a combination of these issues. Other problems can create the body to go into the fight or flight mode for a lot of reasons. Maybe you just watch too many horror movies. I don't know. There's a lot of things that can go on in life that can change the way that the body is working. And when you think about it, the longer that we're on this planet, the more opportunities we have for something to go wrong and for us to get stuck in that cycle of, wow, the body really can't make enough hydrochloric acid now, so it can't digest the food well enough to get the minerals that it needs to make the hydrochloric acid. But in any of these scenarios, if a person understands what's going on, they can take steps to restore that acid function. Maybe they can supplement with some betaine HCl capsules to kind of help the body acidify the food when it's not making enough hydrochloric acid. Now the food can be acidified and broken down and get the body the nutrients that it needs to make more hydrochloric acid if that's the thing that's restricting the HCl production. But if you're going to do that, you really want to understand how to use HCl the right way. My book, Kick Your Fat in the Nuts, chapters 3 and 4 really walk you through how to figure out, do I need to supplement with HCl and improve stomach acid production? And if I do, how do I do that? And we also need to understand how to make sure bile is flowing correctly. And if the gallbladder has been removed, a person can use ox bile and in some cases TUDCA to help that alkaline side of digestion work correctly. But it can be tricky and you really need to know what's going on. You know, even Albert was talking about issues he was having where he creates diarrhea when he was taking those steps. So we do have a video that I'll link in the description below on adjusting ox bile and TUDCA timing and dosage for those who have lost their gallbladder. But you can see there are steps that a person can take to turn this situation around and get their body functioning more towards the way it should be functioning, no matter how old they are. So in my viewpoint, if somebody has everything going correctly, the body's going to continue to make HCl like it's supposed to, no matter how old they are. Just the longer they're around, the more opportunities they have for things to go wrong. So if you want to understand, do I even have enough stomach acid right now? Sometimes it can be tricky to understand what's going on. You can jump over and check out our video on 10 signs of low stomach acid so you can gain more insights if that's even an issue for you now. I can't wait to hear about your results.